Yo, mi gente, welcome to a special edition of Tito's Got Vibes podcast. As you notice, I'm not in the room. Mira, hay piscina where I'm at. I made this drive out here because somebody came from New York that I grew up with, and I needed his story. And I wanted you guys to hear his story because it's a dope story. I tell him all the time, I tell my wife and I tell family, I look up to this guy. Doesn't matter the age, that we're similar in age. What he's done has me looking up to him and forever, like, all the help he's given me is forever embedded in my heart. With not further ado, this is my childhood friend. This is like more like family for me. And he grew up the same block. Felipe from Café con Leche.
What's up, everybody?
Felipe, this is dope. You got me out here traveling. This is my first experience traveling. I told Armando, I was like, yo, Armando.
Yeah, I told him. I said, you gotta open it up, man. You gotta change it up a bit.
Yeah. So I'm over here. I'm like, Armando, let's do it, bro. Let's just go out there. See, we probably get background noise. You guys probably hear somebody splashing in the pool or a highway noise or whatever.
But that's all right. Está bien. That's organic.
This is dope. This is dope. So listen, Felipe, I know you like the back of my hand. Like I'm your wife, and I wanted to be your wife.
Don't tell nobody.
I don't want to talk about that.
Don't tell nobody.
Your wife's here. She doesn't.
When I got here, he had a pink eye. I don't know what's going on. I have to tell everybody.
I get emotional.
What happened last night? Don't tell nobody.
Cállate. No, but listen, bro. And all seriousness, for me. So, where did you grow up? Again, I know I want to skip questions.
So listen, yeah.
Where did you grow up?
In that aspect, Tito's correct. We grew up in the same neighborhood. We had essentially the same. Our families were and are actually
Familia.
Family. You know, we have cousins that have married. Into our own families, which made us a one big family. So we grew up on the same neighborhood. We grew up kind of with the same struggles, with the same challenges, trials, and tribulations of growing up in an urban environment in the Bronx. And
where nobody expected much from us.
And that's an environment that you're not meant to leave or succeed. And so it is definitely exciting to see when somebody does get out and that they do continue to prosper and succeed, because where we came from, it's unheard of, and you're not meant to do that.
This is amazing.
And so the hardest challenge I think about coming from where we come from is that there's not, especially in the industry that we're in, there wasn't many people, if at all, that we could look up to say, how to go about these things. I mean, I was blessed. I was fortunate enough that where my uncles were my mentor, and I think, in a sense
you're cheating. So did you grow up in a family household with mom and dad? Who was the motivators for you? Because that's a big question. I grew up with my mom. My mom was mom and dad.
Same.
What about you?
We both came from single mom households.
And who was your mentors at that point?
My uncles. My uncles were my mentors, be it the one across the hall, or the other one that lived in Cortlandt Manor, or the other one that lived down the block in the Bronx. I think, it's important that having that male role model or that male figure in your life kind of helped us become who we are today, because it's important to have a male figure in your upbringing, be it an uncle or a stepdad or whatever it is. Having that male figure definitely helped shape who you are today.
For sure. Now, when you were younger, and I asked this to every entrepreneur, did you know Felipe is going to be a restaurant owner? What was your aspirations? Like, what did you want to be? I want to be a cop when I was younger, and I'm not that, but what did you want to be when you were younger?
For me, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I had a passion for coffee, and what it related to, what it resembled, what it meant for me, and why I chose the name Café con Leche is really all tied back to my upbringing. And what I mean by that is that cup of coffee, that Café con Leche, relates to my upbringing in a sense of togetherness, right? So although we all, and you can attest to this, we all grew up in a broken home, a single mother home, we had a huge family.
Facts.
And so togetherness was always a thing, family was always a thing, holidays were always a thing. And so whenever I think Café con Leche, I immediately think back to be at my aunt's house, my grandmother's house. I think of that togetherness, that gathering, that family, that café con leche with those crackers and cheese coming out, you know, that musiquita playing in the background, Abuela's in the kitchen cooking, you know, bacalao guisado or whatever's going on, right? So when I chose café con leche, I chose to use that name because it, for me, was relatable to my upbringing and what it meant, and that family atmosphere of togetherness. So when people come into my establishment, they feel that same sense of belonging that I did growing up.
Homey feel.
That home feel, that togetherness, that holiday feel, that gathering, that we're going to have a good time. We're going to create some good memories here.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've been doing this now.
20 years.
The restaurant's been 5 years. We've been in business for 10 years.
Yo. And and he jumped, but
you know, we'll touch on that later, but I think the important thing is the upbringing that we both had and the challenges and trials and tribulations that we both had is incredible to see how you can succeed and how you can overcome those things.
Yep.
If you continue to you know, think about how much you want it.
And push yourself.
There has to be a drive to do whatever you want in life, but you have to be able to want it.
Yeah. Now, what jobs that you had when you were younger, and what did you get from those jobs? Because like I always tell when I'm on here with entrepreneurs or even my wife, every job that I got or every person that I talk to, I get something from. So when you win those jobs, did you think I'm gonna climb the ladder to this job? Like, you know, because you didn't know you were gonna be an entrepreneur. So when you had your jobs, did you think I'm gonna climb this ladder up and go, or did you, you know, how was it for you? Was it organic for you, like when it comes to that?
No, you're right. So in every job that I had prior to opening a business, I did utilize some of the skills. I obtained some of the skills. I absorbed some of those skills, be it, you know, leadership, management, organizational skills, inventory skills, things like that are some of those tools that are vital to my operation today. But I'm grateful for those jobs, you know, and I think that it's super important for people to understand that the key to success, or one of the keys to success, is that no matter what you do in life, you do it with passion. You do it because you care about whatever. If you're at a gas station and you're pumping gas, you better be the best gas pump I ever seen in my life.
That's true. Yeah.
If you're serving coffee, you better be the best barista. I mean, you have to have that mentality in order to succeed, in order to do whatever you want to do in life, and you do it well, is because you need to have that passion for whatever you do. Do it well. Do it because you care. Don't do it because it's a job. Because if it's just a job, it'll never work and you'll never be successful.
And that's what we talk about. Like when we do talk, we talk about having a passion for it, not looking at the money aspect, and looking at it like a job. If you have the passion, if you have fun in doing what you're doing, then it'll definitely 9 times out of 10, or I want to say 10 times out of 10, it works out. You know?
Absolutely.
So, all right. So, café con leche. Let's skip to that. How did it start? Where did it originate from? I want people to know this because I know his story, and he doesn't know that I've been looking at his movements, bro, and in a positive light. And I say that because a lot of people look at people's movements in a negative light, which sucks. In the Hispanic community, and just having friends that want you to fail. So I've been seeing you in a positive light, seeing the struggle. Where did you start from? So I want them to know, where did you start? Because a lot of people see the Instagram photos, the vacation, the cars, probably the house, but they don't see the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it. So where did you start?
I mean, that's super important to touch on. I think, and relatable to me and you and anybody else in any industry of success. There's always a beginning. There's always a starting point, and it's never pretty.
Yep.
I think anyone who you speak to who is successful today has had to and will continue to have to make sacrifices and continue to you know, do things that not everybody is built to do. And you know, when I started this business, it's super important to let people know that I didn't have anybody who ran a successful business in my realm of whether it be friends or family. So it was
You just had an idea?
I just had an idea, and I knew that I had a passion. I knew that I loved coffee,
Okay.
and I knew that maybe one day I wanted to create that homey feel. I wanted to create that café con leche somewhere else. And I think I wanted it to be mine, and I didn't know how to go from there, but I just knew that that's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And so I think the success part, which obviously still it's not easy, as you can attest to. There's still days where you will still have to sacrifice it all to ensure that your passion and your dream continues to succeed. But the upbringing, it wasn't easy. I started in a little 8x10 shed. I mean, think about it. If you have a house and you have a shed in your backyard,
8x10.
an 8x10 shed.
Your house, I mean, your room is probably bigger than that.
My room is bigger than an 8x10, absolutely.
Okay, so you started there.
Absolutely. And so I started there. I worked in the city with my uncles for a bit, and I started there. And, I got a call one day about this 8x10 shed from a local legislator who I had just met because I moved to the area. And she had said, hey, that same train station that you commute into New York City is opening up a coffee shack there. And so, at that time we were laid off from our job in the city, and I took an opportunity to take that leap. And I applied for the place, and I didn't hear back for an entire year.
Wow.
But in that process, again, you don't have anybody who's telling you what to do, how to do it. And so it's incredibly important to let people know. I think that in the level of, and this is why, when you call me or you text me, I love to give you that information, because I had nobody to tell me those things. And so I was able to research, and whether we learned the hard way or we learned the easy way,
yeah.
I think obtaining that information and those resources, because I didn't have anybody who could give me that, sometimes was hard, man.
Yeah.
But if I could save somebody from
Yeah.
making the same mistakes or from going through those same hardships, I would love to give that information freely. In terms of, most people think that in whatever you do, right, if you don't have an entrepreneurial mindset, you think that, if I want to sell, something from my home, or if I want to sell, I'm really good at doing something and I want to open up a business, that you can just sell that product from your home or sell it from a storefront, and that's the end of it. There's a lot to it.
Now, let me ask you a question, because this is a lot of question. The main question I get when it comes to starting a business, a lot of entrepreneurs ask me this when they come into the restaurant or whatever. How did you get a loan? If it wasn't a loan, was it family and friends? Was it your savings? Because a lot of people say, I'm going to just get an SBA loan. It's not that easy unless you could prove me wrong.
No, absolutely. So I can tell you that my wife and I never have taken an SBA loan.
But how easy is it to get? Because I want to clear that up.
It's not easy. It's not easy. I will tell you.
What's the percentage? 90% of restaurants, and they'll tell you over the phone, they told me 90-something% of restaurants fail. So that's why you won't even get the loan for a restaurant.
So when I first opened, so this is where that trials and tribulations come in, not having that experience or someone to give you that information. Those are one of the biggest things that, you really don't understand. And when you go, and that's why it's super important to stay focused and stay driven, because if you and I read something one time where, I worked for Starbucks prior to, which, helped me kind of hone in on.
So that's one of the jobs that got you
honed in on some of the skills of, leadership and management, organization, things like that.
And learning with the coffee.
And learning, learning the aspect outside of the operational, from a marketing perspective, from a branding perspective. When you think a business like that, yes, the product is fantastic, but what do you see? The green cup, the green straw, the
marketing.
It's the marketing, right? The branding of that business. And so those skills kind of help me transition to my business today. But it's super important to understand that it's not easy to get there.
how long did you stay in that 8x10? And what was your trials and tribulations? All right, I want customer reviews, because I know the first year we look at every review, bad, good, indifferent. We look at them, and it affects us the first year. That's why, it is what it is. But how was that first year being in there?
And that you mentioned that, it really relates back to, again, not having someone who can mentor you and tell you. But I remember when you called me and I was already 3 years in, and I said those reviews and the weight that it carries begins to fade, and they don't become as important as year number 1.
It faded.
And year number 2.
It's
right?
faded.
And the reason for that is because, when you're going through this process, you really don't know, because again, not having that experience, you really don't know if you're doing something right.
Exactly.
Or if you're doing something wrong.
The first year,
right?
For sure.
So, and then you get to a point, something clicks in you and it goes, wait a minute. I'm putting out the best product out there. I know that I'm doing the best thing possible, right? I know that I have the best of whatever it is. And at the end of the day, you come to the realization, and most people will attest to this, that you just can't please everybody.
Be here.
And you just can't please everybody. And I think that that's what ultimately ends up being, is that once you get to that point in your success or in your establishment, that you determine that there are more important things to focus on to continue the branding and building of your business. And don't get me wrong, it's not to say that those reviews aren't important. They are important. Yeah. They're important for you to respond to. They're not important for you to feel that you have ultimately failed and you should have done something differently. I think it's important to always address your customers, good or bad.
Always, yeah.
Good or bad, because sometimes if it is a valid point, you can use that to fix
there
whatever.
Are some valid ones.
To fix whatever you need to fix.
And you have loyal customers. And
I do.
That's the ones that I really hone in and listen to when something, if they do have a negative, I know they being honest. But it's like you said, reply to every review, but I'm going to change the sazon on this carne because she said it.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that we have always been a true testament to. And it's hard because we do authentic Puerto Rican cuisine. So that means we got ham in the rice. That means we have ham in the beans.
I'm talking about fresh, todo.
Everything fresh. Everything fresh.
All right, now I don't want to skip. So how long did you were in that 8x10, and what made you go so I'm hitting a grand slam?
I'm gonna tell you what got me there was being down, was being in a struggle, was being in a trial and tribulation. What got me there was the passion and the desire of, be it sometimes maybe some of that trauma from our childhood. That's like, we're survivors, right? We have to figure out a way to make it work, right? And so when I'm in my 5th year,
fifth year in the 8x10?
I'm in my 5th year at this 8x10.
Oh,
not to say your first few years. My first few years were rocky, man. Let me tell you, the first day I opened that train station, I made $37.
First day?
First day. I made $37. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I made $37 for a couple of weeks. And it got to the point where I looked at my wife and I said, I don't know if this is going to work.
And I'm saying wow. In my head, I'm saying wow because it's really wow. Because where he's at now. I'm skipping to. Go ahead, keep going. Wow.
And my daughter, who's 14 now, at the time, she was 4 years old. She's sleeping on the back of, mind you, 8x10, right? Shrunken down to maybe a 5x7 because of counter space and, coffee machines and whatnot. And every day I'm sacrificing bringing my 3-year-old to this hut, right? This 8x10 shed. And she's sleeping on the back of the door with the fold-out Dora the Explorer couch.
Wow, man.
And I did that for months. And I think it got to the point where I told my wife, I said, listen, just go home. I can handle it myself. And, what did it for me was, my faith in God and keeping him first and understanding that he had a plan and a purpose for me.
Always.
And I'll tell you from experience that I came all the way to Tampa just to see Pastor Stephen Furtick.
That was yesterday, by the way, right?
Yep, because I felt like I was told to come here, and whatever may come out of that. But I've been blessed through those struggles, through those tribulations, through those trials, to where the Lord has said, keep going. Right. And I'll tell you, and it is crazy because the message that was said yesterday was, sometimes people give up because, they don't know how close they are to their blessing. Right. And that was exceptionally true for me when I was 5 years in. And at the time, I'm 5 years in. I've built this clientele. I've built this business. And they started doing track work at this station that, this 8x10 shed sat on the top of a Metro North commuter train station.
Oh, damn.
And so my business heavily, if not all, relied on commuters. And so when this 5 years in, this track work commenced.
You thought it was over. You're like, damn.
I went from having 300 customers a day to 3.
Wow. And I want to give a shout out because, and not a shot, I want to ask you a question. During all this time, where was your wife? Like, was she like, babe, keep going? Because my wife is amazing, bro. Like, I had tough times, and nobody understands the right hand that I had by my side pushing me and pushing me and pushing me. So I don't want to skip the wife. Where was your wife? Was she like, babe, give up, let's go to line? Like, where was? No. Oh, she was like, let's go.
No, my wife was there, and you know what? My wife will say it to this day. She'll support me in my dream, no matter what.
That's dope.
And so she's always supported me. In fact, when the transition to the train station happened, the idea of how do we continue to move forward, my wife was there. My wife was there at 3 o'clock in the morning making buttered bagels and buttered rolls and, buttering and wrapping these cream cheese bagels for me to take to the station at, 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, because a lot of people see the front face, which is us and stuff, and I do the funny videos, and he does his videos and interviews, but the anchor, the ones that hold us down all the time, is the wife. Ladies and gentlemen, bro, don't get it twisted. You don't see them, but they in the picture. Just because you don't see them in the picture, they in the picture. So that's why I wanted to give a huge shout out to the wife, because I know my wife does the same thing, and she deals with. I be having crazy ideas. You probably had something that you want to throw in the menu, and she's like, "All right, babe."
Yeah, or she's like, "Absolutely not, absolutely not."
So all right. So now that happened. So how did you get where?
And so throughout that time, now we're making no money. How do I feed my family? How do I continue to move forward? What about this business that I have built over the past 5 years? How do I, the fears of everything that I've sacrificed, is it for nothing? And, and I'll tell this to anyone, I think, turning to God and asking for guidance and asking for the next step and whatever his plan might be, that he open up that door for you and that it be very clear to you where you're supposed to go.
Called patience. A lot of people don't have it, but you need it in this industry. It's needed.
Listen, I'll tell you this, whether you're patient or you're not patient, whatever you do, if you make a move and you don't keep God first, you can make a whole 360 and waste 2 or 3, 4, 5 years of your life, and the Lord will put you right back where you need to be, where he wanted you to be to begin with. And so that's why I say it's so important to keep him first, and keep praying for your next steps and your guidance on how to proceed and continue a successful business. But 5 years hit, and this track work happened, and I turned to my wife and I said, I don't know what to do. How do we, and brainstorming and praying and how do we go from here, right? Because we can't do this much longer where we'll be able to provide for a family or be able to, sustain this business. And so, we came up with the idea, because remember, as I mentioned before, the majority, if not all of my clientele was all commuters. And so what that meant was
in and out, fast track.
I would see them in the morning and then I'd never see them again until the next day, right? So my idea was, how do we attract the people that live in my community to visit me. And so my wife and I decided, well, let's use social media, right? And let me tell you guys, I've never, till now, throughout those struggles, had to pay for any advertisements whatsoever.
I know you told me that. Yeah.
It was very organic. It was very word of mouth. And I think that it's important to mention that, because some people are discouraged that I don't have money for the marketing. I don't have, I don't have that following. I didn't have any of that. I think I had maybe a couple hundred people following me at the time.
And that's a big point, because everybody now wants just following and thinking that's the main thing. Like, I'm going to pay for this foodie, I'm going to pay for that person so I could get my numbers up, and look at his story. So it's not all that. It does help, but it's not all everything.
And in our industry, the most important and influential way to market your business is word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Is to keep that image so that customer can go and tell their friends and their family. That's the fastest way to spread the good news, and that's the fastest way for them to visit your establishment and to spend money in it.
It's true.
And so even till this day, I get people that come in and they're bringing friends and family from, New York City or PA or
Chicago,
Florida,
stuff,
Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I get it.
And I think that that's super important. But once that happened, my wife and I decided on, let's do a lunch special, because
at the same spot?
At the same 8x10 shed.
Okay.
Let's do a lunch special. Now, mind you, guys, think of an 8x10 shed. There's no commercial cooking in there. There's no,
Can't put a hood on anything.
Can't put a hood. I had a Walmart Presto griddle that I was making bacon, egg, and cheese on with pre-made bacon. And I think, at the time I look back and I'm like, wow, that, I used to bump out bacon, egg, and cheese, sausage, and cheese out of that thing. I utilized that to make burgers. I said that was the creation of our sofrito burger. And then when we started, though, we did, check this out, rice, beans, and a meat, right? Most of the time was penne. Rice, beans, penne, side salad, and a pastelillo was $9.95.
The good old days, inflation.
Yeah, so, but again, not having, and it got me to where I'm at, but it's like not having that experience or that mentorship or that guidance to understand that when you grow into where you are today, that $9.95 won't work. It won't sustain your business. Why? Because that's when you start to learn the value of overhead.
Numbers.
Yeah. And what it means to maintain that creation that you have. And so a couple months go by, actually a couple weeks go by, and we're making these things and we're posting them on Instagram and Facebook. And it's crazy because my wife was showing me the other day, place your orders today, and my personal cell phone number came up. It's like, place your orders today for your rice, beans, penne, and whatever it was. And it was, 5 years ago, and I was like, wow, to think.
That's crazy.
To think, and it's so true, because another part of the sermon that was yesterday was that you pray to be where you are, and once you get there, you forget. And not that you forget, but you get so comfortable being what you once prayed for, in the position that you once prayed for, that you often forget that, sometimes, especially during the struggle, right? Like, my wife and I, we can attest to it. She can tell you, it's a stressful environment. The restaurant industry, hands down, it's it's the hardest business to run. But, it's stressful. And oftentimes, we forget that this is exactly what we prayed for.
Yeah.
Where you are, the struggles you're going through, the hardships, the employees, the inflation, yes, it's all part of it. But where you are and the level of success that you have is part of the story that you continually prayed for. And so it's important to understand that.
That's so true, man. That's crazy.
It's important because you think back, right? I think back to those 5 years, and I think about being in that 8x10 shed. And did I envision myself being where I am today? No. Did I pray for something like this? Yes. Right? So it's so important to understand that. It's like, God's plan is always going to come to fruition, but it's important to understand that when you get to what you prayed for, that you have to sometimes understand that the struggles and trials and tribulations and everything that you're going through is something that you once prayed for.
Yeah.
And that's what part of being successful is. You have to appreciate that struggle. You have to appreciate
Exactly.
that level. So after a couple of weeks of selling these plates, you know, and trusting in God that this was his plan, man, we went from, and organically, we went from, you know, one person coming and saying, hey, I want a plate of food, great, and I'll try an acapuria, to, you know, let me get 10 acapurias and 6 pastelillos. And guys, I'm working with a Walmart stovetop electric fryer, right? My wife and I would prep all this stuff at home. We'd be there making pastelillos with a fork.
Hey, don't be saying that. Health department's watching. He wasn't doing it at home.
I wasn't doing it at home.
He wasn't doing it at home.
And again, and you know, that's why it's so also important for people to understand. That's like, you know, we didn't have that guidance to know that was even not okay.
I didn't know either. I had beignets in the oven, bro.
You see these people selling stuff out of their window, and you're like, oh, that's cool. But knowing what that entails, you know, again, not having that experience or that mentor to let you know, you think you're doing it correctly.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'll tell you, man, I learned the hard way not having that.
On the go. You learn on the go.
Yeah, on the go. And listen, I've had a failed partnership, right? Not having that you know, that experience, or someone telling me why partnerships sometimes don't work. I've had a failed partnership that we utilized to learn from that and to continue to understand what not to do. And so we've had failed partnerships. We had, you know, New York State knocking on your door like, oh, you owe us your sales tax. And you're like, when I'm first year in, I'm like, what's sales tax? I pay at the end of the year. I don't owe you anything. What are you talking about? But again, it's in not having that knowledge or that guidance, that person. Right, and that's why when be it you call me or someone calls me and it's for business advice, Mel's brother, my wife's brother, sometimes will call, and you know, things sound so good, but it's like we'll look at it from a logistical standpoint and say, hey, this is what you need to do or what you should do, because these are the things that are to come, right? Whether it be your formation or LLC, and your insurance requirements, all that. Things like that, you
sales
know,
tax.
If sales tax. Hey, I want to move into this restaurant. I'm going to sell, you know, I'm going to sell shish kebabs. Great. Before you do that, make sure you have the proper insurance. Your LLC, you have a DBA, right? Does it have a hood or does it not have a hood? Yeah. Well, I got $20,000. The hood's going to cost you $100,000.
Does it have a bathroom with handicap accessibility? It's so many things.
So many things, right? When was the last time that grease trap was done, right? Yeah. You may go in there and now it's like, great, rip up the parking lot and put a new grease trap inceptor in. So it's super important that, you know, the struggles and the trials and experiences that we went through, that when people call me, I'm quick to tell them, like, hey, that could cost you a lot of money, and here's why. Because we've been there. We've gone through those steps. So, you know, I love what I do. It is a lot of work, but I also love, you know, people reaching out and me giving them that experiences that I went through to help them in whatever their journey may be. And my wife says it best all the time. She's like, you know, in the kingdom, everybody eats. So when you call me and you ask for guidance and you're a Puerto Rican restaurant, I'm a Puerto Rican restaurant, I'm giving you that guidance because you know what? We can all eat. And
let's stick to that point, man. And we talked about this, was it yesterday or Wednesday, I think. It's when I started, and I told, like you said, we didn't have no help, and I didn't have anybody that wanted to help. I knew people in the industry that could have helped and didn't want to reach out and be like, yo, I got you. So the same way he's saying it, and that's why, you know, I call him and ask him for advice because I know he's gonna give it back. There's so many people in the beginning that didn't want to give me no advice. This is the only man that actually gave me advice, and that's why I will always cherish the advice he gave me. But it really, really sucks, and it goes back to like having friends, family, or even foes that just want you to fail, don't want you to. They have the advice. They may have the advice. You may have had somebody in your circle that had the advice, but guess what? They never wanted to give it to you. They never wanted you to win. And what you just said right now was saying everybody could eat, everybody could win. My favorite saying, I'm gonna keep saying it to everybody that comes in: McDonald's and Burger King's is across the street from each other. They both winning.
Absolutely.
Why is not everybody like that? And I've learned and progressing mentally that everybody's just not like me. You know, I used to get mad in the beginning, and I'm like, now I'm like, you know what? I'm fine with it. I get it. I'm going to help the people that I could help, And I know you're gonna help the people you can help, but everybody else is fine. It's cool.
And a lot of that comes back. A lot of that comes back to the environment. There we go. A lot of that comes back to the environment of where we grew up. A lot of that comes from some of that toxic nature of, in the saying, "Yo voy pa mí." I'm for me, and that's it. Everybody else, screw you, right? And I think that's why it's important, and that's what when you had touched on, McDonald's and Burger King, you have Walmart and Target, you have
Right
all
there.
these industries that there's always going to be, quote unquote, a competitor. There's always going to be, someone doing your cuisine or something to the extent. And it's just important for you to continue to stay focused and continue to focus on your branding and continue to focus on what you do and stop worrying about what they're doing. And my wife, sometimes, we're human, right? So sometimes I'm guilty of that sometimes, and I'll browse a page and I'll say, oh man, that's really cool, yo, we should. And my wife's like, stop worrying about what they're doing and continue to worry about what you're doing. And again, we've been blessed where we have 2 locations and we have a food truck. We actually bought the food truck from Tito, and we have a catering van and a huge operation. But it's true that in business you have to focus on what you're doing and continue to thrive based on what works for you.
Yep.
And if it works for you, then you keep doing it.
Yeah. Now we outside. You're gonna hear windy. You're gonna hear the wind. You're gonna hear cars. You're gonna hear horses back there and stuff. Somebody was grilling and stuff. You're gonna hear a lot of things. So I'm sorry for the audio, but outside, man, my man told me to come up here. I'm like, yo, I gotta do it.
Mark Anthony lent me his pool. He said, come over.
He has a community pool,
He
ladies
said,
and gentlemen.
voy.
Stop by.
So,
Yo, listen, so 8x10, and I'm going to skip because you hit a lot of good points. To where you at now, he's successful, man. He's doing his thing. And he mentioned the food truck and stuff. So right now, because I don't want to see the beginning because you already touched on a lot of things. Right now, what do you have? How many stores do you have? How many employees? Like the whole shebang from an 8x10. He's going to skip to the meat of it right now.
from an 8x10, a sole proprietorship, meaning it's just me.
How many employees?
I was single employee.
To how many?
To right now, what do we have, babe? 32? About 32 employees. I have about 28 at the restaurant and 4 or 5 at the Rhinebeck location. And again, I have 2 admins actually that remote workers that live out here in Florida that do all of our.
Shout out to the uncles. Shout out to the uncles.
They're CCL on board, and CCL is Café con Leche for those that are watching. But
that's family love right there.
I was blessed and fortunate with the two, one of the two, or two of the two, I should say, most impactful, influential role models in my life. That have helped me get to where I am today. I was able to give back to them, right? Because they're retired, right? And I said, how do I help them? And my wife and I said, why don't we just make them admins and have them, because we're at a level in our business where our emails and phone calls and party requests and weddings and
why you showing off? Nah, man, it's not showing off. It's hard work. I'm playing around with the showing off. It's freaking hard work, bro.
It's a lot.
It's hard work.
But you can attest to that, and you know that.
Yeah, of course.
Anybody who truly knows me, who has been in our establishment, my uncles included, they'll call me sometimes, or and I'm up at 12, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and sometimes I'm at the restaurant. Sometimes I'm there.
I remember those nights, man.
I'm organizing, or I'm doing the order, or I'm improving my space, right? Sometimes I'm like, you know what, a water station right there would be dope.
Yeah.
And we're go-getters, so we're like, you know what?
Yeah.
Tonight when I close, I'm knocking that out.
Yo, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I don't want to interrupt what he just said about his uncles, man. It's like you don't have a lot of family members like that in any family that are willing to go and help you, because a lot of people are either scared, or again, family friends hating, or don't
but
want to do
also
so.
that request something in return,
Yeah, of course.
because they've never wanted anything in
Of
return,
course.
but a helping hand,
Of course.
right? And so that's why it's so important to understand that, you may find them, but what do they want in return?
A lot. Probably, most likely, 110%. So that's why I want to give them
They
a
want
shout out.
sweat equity.
Yeah.
Why I don't get what you get?
Yeah.
So it's important to understand
And
that
again, let's stop there. You said, I don't get what you get. That's the confusion, right? Like when you go to 9 to 5, you don't expect to get paid like the boss, right?
or to get shares and say that you're going to be, the CEO tomorrow.
But when there's a family industry and you have family and friends and they see, like I said, the glitz and glam, like what you drive sometimes, where you go on vacations and stuff, they don't see the hard work. So they're like, I want what you want right now. And they didn't put the hard work. You guys are misunderstood. I'm sorry. I'm just saying that you don't have misunderstood. So for them to put the sweat equity and be there, because you told me, didn't you fly? Like it was a huge wedding. You told me like a couple,
Yeah,
and they flew out.
I flew Lou out to New York to
Come on,
do
bro.
the logistical planning of this wedding, and it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you often get people, like you said, like, wow, it must be really nice. There was a week
Yeah.
of work,
Yeah.
and not 9 to 5. Who's hauling rentals and silverware and plates
Yeah.
and cups, and who's figuring out the
Cup
logistical
fingers and
nightmare.
stuff like that.
Once we get there, the food set up, the cooking. It's a lot. It's a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of sweat. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and it's a lot of sacrifices.
A lot.
It's important to understand that people think that it's easy, but some people can't do it because of the sacrifice.
Yeah.
And again, if it was this easy, everybody would be doing it. But oftentimes, my daughter's 14 years old, but for the past 5 years, it's been incredibly tough on her as a child, and
Look at that,
incredibly tough on me as a parent, because I know that I haven't been there as much as I want to be. I think because she's a little bit older, she sees the sacrifice and the struggle, and she appreciates it a little bit more. But this is why I say, you can't just open up a business and think that it's not going to come with a sacrifice.
Yeah.
If you're willing to sacrifice sometimes your marriage, your house, your kids, to make sure that you're successful,
Yeah.
it's what it's going to take. And sometimes, my wife's been with me since day one. We're 19 years together. She's been in it since when I worked in the city.
How long we been together?
Throughout 20,
You know what I'm saying? I just want to throw it in there. I want to get her a little mad. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna
About
get her
28 years.
No, but listen, like I want to literally give a round of applause. We're not done, but to the uncles that are here, bro, they here right now, literally, and the
Yeah.
Titi Lizzie. She used to hit me up when I was in Afghanistan. She thinks I probably forgot, but when I was in Afghanistan, she used to hit me up. I love her to death. And your wife. So, round of applause to them, man. They've been through thick and thin, and they watched his downfalls, and now they're here for even. And he may be here, but he may be still having a lot of people see you and you're I'm up. Oh, he's up. He ain't. No, bro. You have your weeks and your months that you probably shift down a little
Absolutely.
bit. So don't get it twisted. Just because you up something doesn't mean that you always up. So, listen. So, what advice you have for entrepreneurs that, man, you made $37 a day, and what was your limit, or did you have a limit? Like, if in 6 months, if I'm still making this in 3 months, what advice you have for the future entrepreneurs? They're gonna be Puerto Rican restaurants, McDonald's, whatever.
Whatever they want to do. I think it's as the pastor had mentioned yesterday, a phrase that he used. He said, "Let them cook." And it's crazy because obviously we're in this industry, right? And that he used that phrase, to let them cook, meant that God's not done. So when you start a business and you go through these trials and tribulations, and understanding that you're right, sometimes you're gonna walk in and sometimes you're gonna be like, wow, is it worth it anymore? Right? Is it worth the sacrifice for what we just made this week?
Yeah.
Is it worth your family for what you made this week? Is it worth your marriage for what you made this week? And then there's some times where it's like you continue to trust in him, and it's like, oh, by the way, we have 7 caterings this weekend, a wedding next weekend, and you're like, praise God, right? And I think that when you're in that moment, and because I've been in many of those moments, and he's shown us time and time and time and time again that I got you, it's important to understand that when you're in those moments and you're not making it, and you think you're not making it, that you continue to remember to let him keep cooking, because he's not ready, right? And you're not ready for whatever that next blessing may be, right? And we're true testaments to that, man.
Is there a way where, like, because I be telling some of the entrepreneurs I know and stuff like that, and you're successful, so you never broke out of it, and you kept going on the same thing, but when do you know it may not work? Like, is there a limit where you be like, for instance, I tell them sometimes, bro, if the bills are paid, everything's good, keep going, striving, but as soon as it starts dipping, that's when you got to start.
That's when you got to innovate.
You know?
That's when you got to become creative.
Exactly. All right.
And that's where I'm pretty much, I've decided that when those things happen, that's when I'm in my most moments that I become creative. And the Lord does that, right? He makes you hungry for more. Because if you're truly passionate about what you're doing, and again, most people tell you, well, no, I tried that. Then you really weren't passionate about what you were doing. Because if you're passionate and you give it your all, it's going to work.
It's going to work.
It's going to work.
No.
Because there's no way it's not going to work, because you're going to make it work. There is no plan B. Right? And I think it's important for people to understand that it's like, if it's something you truly believe in, it's something that you truly have a passion for, it's going to work.
Never thought of it like that.
And let me tell you guys why. Because what Tito didn't mention to you guys was that 8x10 shed was not in a heavily trafficked area. That 8x10 shed was on the opposite side of train tracks in front of a residential community with the marina. But if you weren't taking the train, there was no business for you to be on that side of that town. And I say town, but it's not even a town, it's just a road.
Yeah.
And so, when you're truly passionate about what you're doing, you keep God first. We moved from there into the first location, was right across the street from that 8x10. Still on that side of the neighborhood, middle of nowhere. Think about being on an island in the middle of nowhere, and somehow 200 people are showing up to eat at your establishment. That's what I mean by that. The first location was just that. So don't tell me that location, or you got to have the money, or you have to have somebody fronting you. No.
Go for it.
You need to have a passion.
Go for it.
You need to be able to sometimes you're right. You don't have the capital to do certain things. And if you're passionate about it,
you're going to figure it out.
You build it.
You'll figure it out.
You're going to figure out how to build it.
Yeah.
Or you're going to figure out how to create it without having to spend all that kind of money. So it is super important for people to understand that if you have that drive, you have that passion, and you truly believe in your product or your establishment or whatever you're doing, that you will be successful. And it's not going to come without sacrifice. And as long as you accept that, as long as you understand that there will be days where you're working 120, or there'll be weeks where you'll be working 120-hour weeks, or you'll be working whatever it is, nonstop, right? Your days off are never days off, right? And I think that's what, people who have an entrepreneurial mindset, and I think that's super big today, because everybody wants to be an entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur is huge.
But they need to understand that, do you have what it takes? And
not even that. Let me cut you off. What do you have right now in this house? You have 2 laptops. You still working?
I'm still working.
So he's on a little mini vacation, and you technically are not on a vacation. You still working, and that's one thing that a lot of people get confused. Like,
right.
You see us probably on a cruise or here and there. I still got my phone on me. I'm still checking numbers. How they doing this? How they doing that? Checking cameras. I got cameras everywhere.
Same.
So you still working technically.
You're never disconnected, especially in our industry, because it's such a fast-paced, moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts in our operations that require us to always be tuned in or hands-on, which is why it's important to have the admins that we have, because they can lighten a lot of that load. But my wife's here, and she was running payroll yesterday, right? That's a 3-hour process for us when we have 32 employees.
On vacation, 3 hours.
And
now, I want to ask you a question. I want to ask you a big question because I'm gonna forget. I'll be cutting him off. You probably gonna be, yo, why you couldn't feel? He probably had a good point. when people say, Felipe, you changed. I hear that a lot.
That's a tough one, man.
I hear that a lot because that it hurts me because I don't change. I still got the same heart. So I want to ask you the question: when people say, "Yo, Felipe, you changed," how does that make you feel? And like, did you change?
It's frustrating. I mean, a perfect example. We grew up together.
Yep.
I don't think you've changed.
Nah, man, I'm the same Tito, bro. I'm a jokester. I was in the hammock. He has a nice acre here, and I'm in the hammock. I'm about to jump in the pool after. Yo, bro, I'm Tito.
I don't think you've changed. Do I think you grew? Yeah, I don't mean that in a
or matured
in a physical standpoint. What I mean, from a business perspective, from a entrepreneurial perspective, you've grown just as much as I've grown. But also, when people mention that you have changed, it's coming from a place. And again, I have now being in this industry 10 years. I have people who have been in this industry for many years and are continuously doing it. I have people who have been there and often give me advice. Right, and
what they tell you about family and friends that say that, is it that you changed or they changed? Like how?
The frustrating part is that because of the type of people we are, and I now, my wife and I, we talk about this a lot. We now see why certain businesses, right? Like I have a lot of my staff have come from like diners that have. Different owners, right? American owners or different religions or different backgrounds and whatnot. And, they may have been disrespectful to the employees or the server or whatever, or zero tolerance. And when I talk to some of those, I can see how it got there. And what I mean by that is that because we're giving, because we're nice, because we're continually taken advantage of, it's used as a weakness point because sometimes they know that you'll give in, but a manipulation standpoint as well. And sometimes, I see these other restaurants now and they have a zero tolerance because they've also been there. And they've built up to a point where now it's like,
nah, I'm good.
Right? And so now what happens in that instance is that you now become
the bad guy
and the a-hole and the person that doesn't understand and that they've changed, right? But the perspective of that business owner and where they're coming from, unless you have been, and you have your own business and I have my own business, but I can never look at you and say he handled that wrong, because at the end of the day, it's your business, how you operate and how you feel and what you need to protect at the end of the day.
Now, advice is always could be given.
Absolutely.
Like Felipe could not tell me what I'm doing wrong. Like, he could pull me to the side, like, bro, I think you could do that a little bit better.
I mean, perfect example, right? Tito had moved into the business, and he called me and I gave him advice, and I said, I think, and again, you don't have to do this, but I said, I think that for Instagram and Facebook, if you started plating your food on ceramic plates,
I'm doing it now,
it would be phenomenal, and you would get a better growing, right?
Yeah.
I didn't tell Tito tomorrow, you're stupid because you're still plating in to-go-ware, right?
And that's the difference, because and I'm cutting him off. He's gonna punch me in the face after this, but because advice and then talking behind your back, right? So advice, he could come to me and tell me this personally, and it won't leave that room. I gave Felipe advice, or he gave me advice, and I'm doing something wrong, whatever. The other thing is, te dicen en la cara, right? They'll tell you, then they go behind you, tell 100 people, then that 100th person goes to you and be like, yo, but this person took, but why did they leave the room? You know what I'm saying? So advice, good advice is one-on-one. Whatever me and Felipe talk about, my wife knows, nobody else knows. It's just me and him, one-on-one. And that's what sucks when it comes to family and friends that want to see you fail or...
It's hard because the perspective.
The perspective. They're not entrepreneurs. They don't know what's going on behind the scene. I keep saying that. I wish, bro, I had and I should do it, go live and see I go to 4 different stores in the morning, or I'm prepping 5 different meats and I'm seasoning and I'm doing this.
And that's what I mean by when people who don't want to sacrifice.
Yeah, and that's why I give a, and he's gonna punch me. I cut him off again, and that's why I give a big shout out to the wife and the uncles and the family members that understand. They're not entrepreneurs, but they still understand. Like,
they understand it because they're also a part of it.
And so they see the struggle.
And they see the struggle.
Like, bro,
but also
I'm so animated, bro. Let me stop. Let me drink water.
But also, while having them, as admins, they get to see kind of a sneak peek of what happens a day in the life of a restaurant owner or an entrepreneur, and they're not subjective to say you're handling this wrong. Let's do it this way. They're open to actually to being there and being a point of contact for ideas or maybe, hey, listen. Sometimes Mel and I will hit a brick wall and it's like, oh my God, how do we go about this, right? And we'll do a Zoom call, we'll all get on and we'll touch and we'll say, hey, how can we do this wedding that has none of this and none of that? And
and you brainstorm.
And you brainstorm and you have people that genuinely want to make it work.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's important because when you have the opposite of that and you have the naysayers and you have the I
call it negative energy. When you have that, like, and my mom passed away this year, and I'm all for, and that's why I'm doing this podcast, because I want people to see this podcast and see how he's done it, and I just want positive energy thrown to people, because a lot of people don't want to help with telling people how to come up in the restaurant industry, in this industry, and that industry. So for me, it's big on keeping people around you that are positive. I told you the other day, I said, Felipe, I'm going to be honest. And I used to tell my mom when I was younger, and I love her to death, I hate bochinche. So now I block it off. I tell my wife, I told you 2 days ago, I said, if anybody comes talk to me about somebody, I'm not listening. And then they get mad, like, yo, Tito, you ain't here? Nah, I didn't hear any, because I just want positive. If you talking positive about that other person, I'm clapping, I'm all for it. But when it's negative energy, and you feel it, right or wrong.
Absolutely.
When you walk into the door, that negative person, you feel it, and I shift.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So positive energy is definitely a key to staying humble, to staying having the work ethic you have, and not going down a bad, like, in New York, when we talk about it, like, when if a guy has a nice car, he just bought the car, and this is how we train, this is where we come from, and he has a nice car, he put 20s on it, and he put a system on it, we train to hate on that guy. We train to be like, yo, he's showing off. Yo, this, what? And I'll tell you my story. I robbed somebody that way. I'm going to be honest. I mean, statute of limitations gone. This dude drove down the freaking block with a Honda Accord. I'm not going to say the color because then I don't know if statute's good. But 20 system and everything. My friends and my brother was hating on him. We went and we stole his, and not knowing the hard work he put in for that freaking car. And I could talk about it open because I will never do it again. And my son, I'll smack the but it's just so true, bro. We trained to hate on that next person that's working as hard as possible to get that Honda with the 20s, with the system and everything. That's what I hate about where I came from. I love New York. That will always be my passion and my love. Bro, forget it. I say it down, and I'm still talking with the slang. But the things that I hated was the hate amongst each other. It was horrible.
That's a societal thing, man. I mean, coming from that environment, like I mentioned before, was very geared towards toxicity and keeping you in and, not progressing in life. And in not progressing in life...
They just wanted you to stay here.
Right. And in not progressing in life meant that, I'm bored now. So now what? Well, let me go get into some stuff, right? Let me do this. Let me do that, But it's so important to get out. It's important to get out to understand that there's a better life out there for you, for your kids, for your future, because that environment, and I often say this all the time, and our uncles and mentors or people who are older than us, it's come to fruition where it's like the same people that we grew up with that we were playing kick the can or manhunt or whatever was going on. Skelsies. They were, or 3-on-3 in Casita Maria, right?
Casita.
These are the same people that if they, if you went around the block today, they'd be the same people that are in the corners.
In the same spot.
In the same spot that the previous generation was in. So we were running around, and so-and-so was on the corner, and so-and-so was on the other corner. And because they didn't get out, they ended up now being the corner guys.
And appreciate the military for me. Appreciate your business view and moving somewhere.
I mean, I appreciate, again, my uncles because, my uncle lived up in Westchester, and our weekend getaways was what opened my eye to say,
there's a light.
You can have this stuff?
There's a light. There's a light.
You can actually have a house in the backyard. And the fact
peace of mind. And
the fact that they were mentors to me, right? In keeping you on the straight and narrow, where it's like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, or hey, make sure that you're, that's your mom, that's your whatever. Staying positive and giving that advice, like, it's going to get better, or you're going to get the job, or whatever the case may be.
And back to your uncles, bro. Like, it's crazy because you have that voice. I never had the voice. The military was the voice for me. So for you to have it with those uncles saying, yo, don't worry about it, you're good. Because if you didn't have that, you probably would have been swallowed up into the mindset of everybody where we grew up at.
Well, it's the family atmosphere, the family, so to say, way of living. Everybody in my family, my grandparents were so, they were really stressed on the fact that I don't care what it is. That's your aunt. That's your uncle.
Oh, yeah.
You can never disrespect them.
Family values.
Right? So they kept those tacks very, very close, which in turn helped me get out on the longer, side of it. When you think about it, you think about when people say that it takes a village, that's what they mean.
Yeah.
They mean that, if you're out down the road and you're on the back of a bus, or you're on the roof, or you're playing, in the middle of the street, or you're throwing eggs at police cars or whatever, that person who maybe your uncle, or maybe the guy, Felipe store, right? Maybe the guy,
rest in peace, Felipe.
Get off. Or the fact that, and because of that, we became the kids that's like, you're not stealing candies from Felipe store.
Yeah.
You go to Leo. You ain't stealing from here.
Yeah.
But because of those family values, and my grandparents were a true testament to that, where, no matter what, they kept us together, and it's vital because that's how I was able to, get that mentorship from my uncles, whether it be through a phone call from Ray or a phone call from Louis. And then in turn, I started working in the city, and I started working alongside these guys.
So you knew how they worked, how they moved,
how they sacrificed for their families, and how they worked 6-7 days a week to provide the lifestyles that they had, the nice car or the nice house, or the extracurricular events for the kids, right? It's important to understand that all those things came with sacrifice, but witnessing it firsthand, in my business, I understand that even more so. Because I know that those things aren't going to come without those same sacrifices. Yeah. And although they work for someone else and I work for myself, right? It's the same sacrifices.
Yeah.
It's the same struggles. You want that lifestyle, you want that nice car, or you want that vacation, it does not come without sacrifice. No. And many people aren't willing to do that.
And where you grew up as well, you want it especially now, today, in today's era, you want it fast. You want it tomorrow.
That's instant gratification. That's the culture that we have today.
You want the nice cars, you're going to do scams. You're going to rob people. You're going to do this. You're going to do that in order to get to where you want to be, which you get the car, you probably get the house, but then you probably down the line going to do 10, 15, 20 years in jail.
And you know what? It's important to mention this because when you have nothing, you think that acquiring those things is something that'll make you happy.
Yeah.
And let me tell you from experience, my wife's dream car was a Range Rover.
Did she get it?
And she got it. She got it.
That's what's up.
We bought a Range Rover, and we bought a house.
Never got me one.
And we had We have multiple cars, and I'll tell you what, we don't have a Range Rover today. Been there, done that.
Cause it's like,
It's one of those things where it's such a false sense of, wanting something to feel better or to be better, and then you acquire it, and it's like, now what? And so now she has an Acura. She loves it. That's what she loves. She didn't love the Range Rover anymore.
Yeah.
And my favorite car, I have a 2004 F-150. I call her Betty White. She got no bells and whistles. She got roll down windows. It's nothing.
Yeah.
Just key and go.
Gets you to point A to B.
And that's my favorite car.
Yeah.
I love that car. It keeps me humble. Doesn't I don't feel like I need to have the newest vehicle or the newest or whatever.
And what's funny is that when you in the hood, we were in the hood,
It's materialistic.
It's like we need that, we want that because everybody else is striving for it. And then when you get into the business, so you get this and you get family, you get a wife, you get a house, you're like, wait a minute, I don't need that chain. I don't need that car. I need savings. I need to do this. I need to do that. So it's just two different perspectives. And it's like when you say she had the Range Rover, it goes down. It's so crazy that people still striving for that Range Rover where we were at. And it's fine. It is what it is.
But it won't
fulfill
bring you.
Yo, it's crazy. We got to end this. The batteries are shot. They done. We have a lot more to say. Part 2 may be coming soon. Yo, Felipe, I appreciate you for letting me do this podcast, coming out here, throw myself in the pool in a couple and smoke, finish this. This cigar is amazing. But listen, I appreciate you, man. And,
Likewise, man.
And Café con Leche, where is that in New York? Real fast.
Wappingers Falls, New York. It's about an hour north of New York City, so Dutchess County area. You can look us up, NY Café con Leche. All the social media handles. Yeah, man. I appreciate the call and coming out and
for sure. Anytime.
And a word for everyone out there is to keep on pushing, man. Just keep pushing. If you're passionate about whatever you do, you'll succeed.
Of course, mi gente. Tito's from God Vibes Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Let's go.